Alright, welcome to Cup of Joe, where we settle our spirits and steep our creativity. Share this live stream. As always, let's make this a morning party I'm doing it right now. I take out my phone, go to Facebook Joe Kai page, bada bing, bada boo, bada bee, blah, 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 blah. And I'm gonna share it. Where's that button? There, the little three dots. And oh god, technology is hard. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be that hard. Here we go. Reshare. I found the button. Share. Boom. To my timeline. Cup of Joe with Darrell Grant. Oh. Connection. What? I'm trying to tag Darrell Grant. I'll just have to do it later, because as much as you all would love to see me stare into my phone, you can do that some other time. We'll just do a whole Cup of Joe show where all I do is just stare at my phone. An hour of Joe staring at his phone. It'd be beautiful. Really just a social commentary on our attention spans, the demise of human interaction as we know it. Okay, here we go. So, here we go. Yes, settle our spirits, steep our creativity. Please share this live stream. Today's theme. What is today's theme? Today's theme is settling. Settling. So what does that mean? Let me know what it means. Settling. What does it mean to you? Boom. You guys can't hear, but Darrell Grant is playing some beautiful piano to this loop. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be a good show. Today's guest, speaking of, is Darrell Grant, jazz pianist, composer, professor of music at Portland State University. Let's go over and check out what's going on. Hey, Darrell.
Hey, Joe. Man, what a great way to start the morning.
It sounds great. I'm so excited.
Yeah, it's fun.
And coffee. And we'll be back. Bam. There we go. Darrell's awesome. We will come back to Darrell in 2 seconds. Please remember to support this program. Support Cup of Joe at Venmo. Pew! Here at Joe Kai. There we go. Bam. Joe at joekai.com. And it is how we keep this thing going. All right, let's start off with a little song I call Stick on Me. Yes, so I have been with you, but I know not where we go. No, I am no longer scared, but find that I'm reaching for the blues. So stick on me and go lick your wounds and we'll know each other. So stick on me and go lick your wounds and we'll know each other. Still choosing the other you, but it's just some foolish goal. Losing my sleep to you, but if you're stealing my dreams, I'll let you go. So stick on me and go lick your wounds and we'll grow together. So stick on me and go lick your wounds and we'll grow together. So stick on me and go lick your wounds and we'll grow together, together, together. Stick on me, baby, stick on me. Lick your wounds, baby, lick your wounds. Grow, together, together, together. Stick on me, baby, stick on me. Lick your wounds, baby, lick your wounds. Grow, together, together, together. Stick on me, baby, stick on me. Lick your wounds, baby, lick your wounds. Grow, together, together, together. Stick on me, baby, stick on me. Lick your wounds, baby, lick your wounds. Grow, together, together, together. Stick on me, baby, stick on me. Lick your wounds, baby, lick your wounds. Grow, together, together, together. Stick on me, baby, stick on me. Lick your wounds, baby, lick your wounds. Grow, together, together, together. Stick on me, baby, stick on me. Lick your wounds, baby, lick your wounds. Grow, together, together. Stick on me, baby, stick on me. Lick your wounds, baby, lick your wounds. Grow, together, together. Stick on me, baby, stick on me. Lick your wounds, baby, lick your wounds. Grow, together, stick on me, baby, stick on me. Lick your wounds, baby, lick your wounds. Grow, together, stick on me, baby, stick on me. Lick your wounds, baby, lick your wounds. Grow together. Bada bing! We got Kim settling like sediments or like bad dating choices. Ah, yes, yes. Eventually we have to settle, I think. Eventually. And Joyce is sinking into meditation. I love it. I love it. Glad to provide meditational feels. Hello to everyone watching on the YouTube channel. Hello to everyone watching on Facebook. And of course, we got Darrell's page, and Bravo Youth Orchestra is also in the house. How's it going over there? Nice, nice, nice. Okay, here we go. Story, story time, story time with Joe. So settling. What does settling mean to me? There's a lot of different things going on. When I moved to the Northwest, Seattle to be exact, in 1995, our family had burnt through pretty much most of our savings. Um, we were we had moved to Boston. My father was looking for a better life in academia, no less. But if you move to a whole new country at the age of 33, that's gonna be tough. So we moved to Seattle, and we moved into a tiny little apartment. We had no furniture. I think we had one mattress. That was nice to have. But I also remember just eating lots of instant ramen, sitting on the kitchen floor. So I never felt settled into Seattle. It always felt like we were moving around, um, living in basements, and just unsettled. It was this constant cloud of like, "Whoa, what's going on?" That changed, of course, when I got a gift. When I got a gift, my neighbor's mom never rode her bicycle, and so I think it was around Christmas time, and she lent me her bike. She kind of just permanently lent me my bike, and I remember feeling so free. The freedom to explore the neighborhood, the freedom to escape from the house and just go cycling around. And I think that is the turning point for me as far as my Seattle experience and feeling like I belonged, or that I was settling um, into this place, was having that freedom to explore. So we'll be talking about settling a little bit more later on in the show with Darrell. Support this program as always, Venmo at Joe Kai, joe@joekai.com. Speaking of which, let's go over to Darrell, who is a jazz pianist, composer, professor of music at Portland State University, and one of my biggest Portland musical inspirations. So please give it up for Darrell Grant.
Back at you, Joe Kai.
Yes. Thanks
Fantastic.
for thanks for thanks for being
Great
on,
to see you.
Darrell.
Oh man, are you kidding me? It's my honor. A reason to get up on Saturday morning. Thank you.
If it weren't for this, we would still be in bed.
That's actually not true. I get up really early every
How
day
early is
almost.
early?
But how early is early? 6:30.
Wow.
You know, generally, sometimes earlier, but yeah. Well, you should talk, man. You have young children. You know how that happens.
This is a true fact. But yeah, I think once the babies came, it was game over. Like 10 o'clock becomes
Yeah,
6:30.
yeah,
Well,
right.
speaking of
It's true.
early, so here's the question that I ask all of our interview guests. Do you have an early childhood memory around music?
Um, yeah, I have a couple. One of them is not really my memory, but it's a legend
Mm.
about me um, that I've carried, and I think it probably inspired me as much as it did. So I was I apparently took to music really early on. My parents tell me that I used to sit around and ask them to put on Nat King Cole records, and I would sit around and listen to those, and then I go try and pick out the notes on this toy piano. But my father tells me that when I was 2, they took me to this concert of this kind of organist pianist named Earl Grant. No relation, as far as I know, although should be. And I sat like sort of on the floor, like beneath their seats, like at their feet for the whole concert. And they told me that when they got up at intermission, the people who were around were stunned that a 2-year-old had been in this concert the whole time, and they never knew because I never made a peep. I was so enraptured with the music. So that's the story that I
Mm.
carry around. That it's like, oh, okay, I have this early music thing. And Another one was a memory I have is, so I used to do talent shows. I don't know if you did those when you were growing up, but they used to have community talent shows, and so I did a bunch of those. And so one of them, I don't know where I got this idea, but I thought, okay, I'm going to play, but one of the secret weapons I know is if I show some presence of mind. So I remember standing on the stage big, probably a high school auditorium, but at the moment, for like a 7 or 8 year old, it was like huge, looking out into the dark. And before I played, it's like, before I play, I'd like everybody to give it up for our wonderful MC. And I was it took so much nerve to not just show up and play my piece. Like I was breaking the rules. I was like, doing this thing. Anyway, apparently that impressed the judges so much that my, presence of mind that I won. So I was like, okay, I get how this goes. So that's a memory of sort of adding something to music, providing some
Mm.
context for music. That's
I'm sure that's the only
early
reason
on.
you won, though, is because you.
It's probably the only reason I won. It's cute kid. Look at him. Look
Yeah,
at this
but I
cute
mean,
kid.
it's the. I think yeah, like you were saying, it's presence of mind, but it's also it's the complete performance, right? You're not just delivering a musical package, right? You're inviting people into this moment of creation.
Well, yeah, and it's funny because now, of course, I mean, I like teach classes about this. I do give presentations, and I'm realizing that, I mean, I'm working on something like this right now. The idea of framing our
Hmm.
humanity in performance. If we can find a way to make it about our humanity rather than about some sort of performance, then we connect with
Hmm.
people. So I think that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to connect as a human being, beyond the music on stage. So apparently, that's when I started. I should have started writing grants at that time. But
You could have written anything like, "Oh my God, this 7-year-old." Um,
yeah, right,
Amazing.
exactly.
People who are out there, all the Cup of Joe viewers, this is your chance. If you have questions for Darrell Grant, please put them into the comments. I'll keep an eye on them, and and I'll pepper Darrell with all of your toughest questions as we continue.
I don't have enough coffee for the toughest questions.
Wow,
I'm
no,
like,
I don't know. I can't think of any tough ones. Cool. So, all right. Yeah. Well, we can talk about that later. Sorry. Collaboration. Are you gonna play something for us? Let's play something.
yeah. Uh, I am going to play something for you, and it's funny. You talk a lot about, you have these twins, and so I think uh, that's something that I think about. Um, and oh, looks
Oh,
like our connection is
can you hear me?
poor.
I can
I don't
hear
know if
you.
you can hear
Can you
me.
hear me? Hello, hello, hello. I can hear you. Can you hear me? I can hear you. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
At just the perfect time.
Can you hear me? I can hear you.
I think you might have lost me.
This is nice. This is funny, I think, because viewers out there can see me talking to you. They can also see you talking to me, and oh, okay, now you're frozen. Let's see. Technical difficulties, as always. This is life in 2020.
Hmm.
Let's see. Let's see if Darrell comes back. Oh, call ended. Boom. Let's try it again. A bing.
I'm here.
Hey, Darrell.
Can you hear me now?
We can. It's funny.
I
I could hear you before too.
Oh, but you just couldn't see me. So
Oh
maybe
no,
it was the
I
video.
could see you and hear you, but I think you could not hear or
I
see
could
me.
not hear you.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
it was
Well, I should have just kept playing then.
no. It
So
sounded
I'll do that next time.
it
So I
sounded
just play
nice.
now?
Yeah. Here, hold on a sec. Can you tell us what you're gonna play?
Yeah. So I was saying I was thinking about you having a child, and it reminds me whenever I see people with young children
Mm,
about how that whole process was, for me, and
mm.
I have this sort of soft spot for that period of time. So this is a Thad Jones composition called "A Child Is Born," which I recorded actually on a record of mine called "Spirit" back in 2003, which was a year before my son was born. So
Mm.
this is "A Child Is Born." Wow, that was digital. So what happened when I stopped? Like, did I just cut out?
I think so. It was really it was very digital. I'm just trying to draw the symbol here to like that the moment before the child arrives, right? It's
Right.
like we're creating, and then all of a sudden, oh, you have children, you better stop making stuff.
For me, it was like I thought
Oh,
I just I couldn't believe I couldn't believe that it was true that, you had to stop being productive when you had children. And so, but then I found out when I had a child, it's like you can't even finish a sentence,
mm.
much less like write an email or do anything like that. So it was a challenge.
Yeah, I think I'm coming around to it, and I think it's made me really reassess why I create.
Mm.
I sing a lot of songs about poopy diapers these days, right? And kind of, these inane, inane songs that augment and color the world around my children. And I think,
Sing
on
it to them.
yeah, to them and to me, right? We're kind of singing it together, and if I'm lucky, they'll start dancing and look up and start spinning around, or even mimicking the sounds that I make. And
Yeah.
I think maybe I'm getting older, and that's on a good day, that's a beautiful moment, and I feel proud of the fact that I have used art to provide beauty in their world. Um,
I think it's awesome.
yeah.
So our tradition when my son was born, for whatever reason, I started telling bedtime stories at night, and I'd make them up. And I
Mm,
mean, I can't. We had hand pup. I mean, I made an original story every single night, and it was
mm.
like not a short one. Like he was like, "No, that's not enough. Come on, more, more plot complexity, more." And so I would just make up stuff about the characters, his bedtime toys, and everything every night for like I don't know, couple 3 years. I mean, maybe longer. I don't even remember. It was just like, but what's interesting is I didn't realize that I was building my ability to tell stories. I did not realize that I was like stretching the muscle of my imagination every single night, night after night after night, so that now it's like you get that idea of story embedded in everything that you do and creating from scratch. Like I'm tired, like I just want to go to sleep, but I can't. I got to do my story, and it can't be lame. 'Cause-
It can be.
so, well, it's true, but the critic,
Oh no, the critic. We say it again. The critic.
the critic was pretty critical. I
Right.
mean, he had his opinion about what he liked, and so it couldn't be
Ah,
lame in his eyes. That's what I
right.
mean. So
But
I
the
had, and mostly it was about commitment. Mostly it was about effort. Like you
mm,
couldn't phone it in. You could tell when I was phoning it in,
right,
and it's like, please go to sleep, please go to sleep, please go.
right. But I think that's the beauty. Well, that's the beauty and the curse is that the critic is right in front of you, and they're your loved child, um, as opposed to the critics in your head that you
Yes,
imagine. Right.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's true.
The
That's
freedom to
true.
explore. So okay. So you moved to Portland in 1997. Uh,
Mhm.
what was it like then? And we talked a little bit about settling, and I'm wondering
Mm.
kind of when you felt like you felt settled.
Mm. That's really interesting. Um, so, I moved to Portland from New York, and you know, I lived in New York for 10 years, but, to be successful as a musician, when you live in New York, you need to not be in New York. I mean, unless you have like a Broadway musical or a TV show or something like that. I mean, which I did not. So I was touring, I was trying to play and move. And so I didn't, as much as I loved New York and I had my spots in New York, my restaurants, my hotel, I mean, my apartment shops and things like that. I didn't really have a community in New York.
Hmm.
And so when I moved to Portland, it was really interesting because that part came really quickly. And that's part of why I moved. I was like, I wanted to live in a place where I felt like I could make a difference in the place that I lived. And what was interesting about Portland at that time, and I think it's still to some extent the same, is that Portland is a city that feels like a small town, and it has this way of really embracing and adopting people immediately. So what was interesting is the week after I moved to Portland, people were introducing me on stage as a Portland pianist, and I was like, no, no, I'm a New York pianist who happens to live in Portland. Like, let's get this straight. And I was really stunned at how people were so eager to embrace me, to welcome me as a Portlander. And I resisted it for a long time, even though, obviously I came to find a community, to find a community. And I think it was really one thing.
It was really.
Did you hear? So that was one thing when I bought a house. That was one moment at which I felt like, okay, I'm really settling in here.
Rooted.
I've got a footprint, and I think having a position at PSU, teaching students, and having a place, I guess, where, because the thing is, when you're a touring musician, you're an itinerant. You sort of, I mean, peripatetic. You're around the world, and you don't really feel like you have a place, in the community where people really know what you do. I found that was something that really helped settling. It's like you tell people you're a jazz musician, they have no idea what that life is. They know, you stay up late, you take drugs, you like what, what you make. I mean, they don't have any,
That's
they have
it.
no relationship. But you tell them yeah, that's pretty much. I stay up late, take drugs. That's my only, you know. It's the myth. But when you tell people you're a university professor, well, they know what that is,
Sure.
and they can relate to place and how you fit in the community. So, I think that there's a way in which that helped me settle. But there's also part of me that doesn't want to settle. There's a part of me that wants to be sort of keep moving around. I have a mercurial spirit. I'm always trying to do new things and find something new, do something in a different way. So even though I feel at home, and I've definitely, I've had opportunities to leave Portland, and I have chosen not to. I've chosen to stay here over, 20, almost 25 years. That's crazy. Never saw myself living in a place for 25 years, but here I am.
Freedom to explore, having those roots.
Yeah.
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 Marilyn Keller asks, do you have hope that technology will evolve to facilitate these interactions?
You mean, do I hope that I will get an Ethernet connection so I don't keep dropping this? I do have hope for that. As a matter of fact, that's rapidly moving to the top of my list. That technology. Um, well, it's strange. I think we will not be able to replace human presence, but I gotta say, maybe it's my personality, maybe it's that I'm a very visual person, but I'll be sitting in this studio of mine, which is, a very small space. And I can be here for 9 hours, but have conversations over the course of that any given 9 hours with up to 100 people. And I feel when I walk out of this space like I've been to all these places. And then I have to remind myself, no, you actually have been sitting in the same chair, not moving, like, and you should have been moving, but for 8 hours. So I think for me, the connection is not so lost, because, and maybe that's one of the reasons I live in my head. I'm always imagining things. So maybe it's easier for me than it is for other people. So I guess I can't say that I'm optimistic, in total, but I have to think that technology will allow us to be maybe synchronous
Yeah.
a little bit more than we are, so that we can, so that you and I could play together in real time. That would help. And I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, it's a yeah, two sides to the coin, because I really do believe in the power of creating in the moment, in presence, because I think there's a
Mhm.
spiritual dimension that
Completely.
yeah, that you access and you co-create, even with the audience too, who may not be playing an instrument, but yeah,
Totally.
there's that magical moment of creativity that happens. But there are moments to be found, I think, over over the interwebs.
Well, it's going to be interesting. One of the things that I think is going to be interesting giving the first performance back when the room is full of people and we're sitting close together is not performing. Like I'm waiting for that moment where I can just sit. I'm probably going to cry, just standing there in the presence of everyone,
Mm.
just soaking it in. Because you're right. I mean, the couple times that I've actually had a rehearsal, I mean, I've done a couple of live stream gigs now, but just, all this stuff's going on in your head, right? You're planning the music, you're arranging the music, you're imagining the music, all this stuff because you know that you can't be together. But then you go in the room and you rehearse and you realize that that was 20% of the work.
Mm.
Like all that free stuff, like, and then the minute you get in the room, and I know we had this experience with Marilyn when we were doing her performance, it's like get the players in the room, and all of my ideas that sounded so great in my own head are like, ah, that's garbage. No, do this. No, let's do this. No, I mean, I realized I couldn't do it I couldn't make the music without them. I thought I could,
Mm.
but I couldn't. And the minute they're in there, we're all together. It's just things just start. The electricity starts flowing, and
Yeah,
that,
because
that works.
you hear the spirit even in advance of the actual time, if that makes sense. Like, we when people jam over the internet, they're worried about, oh, like, what about the lag time, and the lag time. Sure, there's the fact that you can't align the BPM, but when you're in a space together, you can feel people, right,
Right.
even ahead of the actual aligned time.
Do you ever have that experience when you play with people where you really feel like it must have been telepathic? Like
Yeah.
there's no way you could have known that, and that happens. I mean, in improvised music, at its best,
Right.
that's the amazing moment. It's like you look at each other like, how did we even know that we were even building to this thing? But and
Yeah.
you don't even know that you're aware,
Right.
and until it all happens together. So yeah, you're right. It's
Right.
amazing.
It's a conversation, right? And you can see where people are going because you're in that moment together. And it's, especially in the musical realm where it's like, yeah, he, we're building to this, and then, oh my God, here we are, like in octaves or thirds.
Yeah,
And it's just it's a yeah,
yeah,
it's a beautiful moment. But it's hard to do. It's hard to feel that happening through a camera lens.
right.
Yeah.
That's true. That's
Oh
true.
God, I'm so
So
excited. Take your vaccines.
yes,
Oh
please.
man. Okay, so we're gonna do a little game here. Kim's gonna sob, 100% gonna sob for a month. Seth Truby says making music together in person will never be obsolete. It's the hearth, right? It's the hearth.
Mm, yeah.
Okay, cool. We're gonna do a little improv game.
Okay.
And before we do that, this is the first time that Copa Joe has been linked to a coffee sponsor. So just want to thank Trailhead Coffee Roasters for sponsoring
Nice.
and hosting this conversation with Darrell.
Nice.
Now, for people out there, if you have, we're going to do a little improv game, just like 30 seconds, 10 to 30 seconds, back and forth. What does blank sound like? I was inspired by Bravo Youth Orchestra. They had an awesome December 9th winter concert. And one of the things that they're doing in private lessons is giving their students a chance to improvise, which is so outside of the classical paradigm. Yeah,
Yay. There is no classical paradigm.
yeah.
It's gone. It's just disappeared. There's only improvising.
Dismantle the
Everybody improvises.
dismantle the paradigms.
Yep. Everybody improvises.
Yeah,
It's just a thing.
yeah. And Adam, one of the teachers there, Adam,
Eccleston?
yes, Eccleston, just asked one of his students, "What does winter sound like?" And they went for it, which I thought was
Mm-hmm.
really beautiful. So we'll start off with
Totally.
that. I have some questions. If people, as we're listening, have other prompts, then yeah.
Oh, please. We'll trade. You take one, I take one.
Okay, cool. So first one will be Daryl. What does winter sound like?
Oh, what does winter sound like? Okay.
Skype.
Did that work?
Parts of it. I think the more complex it got, the more the internet was like, we don't know what to do with this.
It's like we can't translate, can't translate.
It was
Well,
beautiful. Yeah.
I was thinking about winter in Portland is rain, right? It's like this
Mm.
like starting of like it goes softer, it goes harder. It's like, but then and then sunbreak,
Mm. I was thinking,
and then
I was hearing icicles, which also have that kind of downward trajectory. Um,
yeah.
and you had, it was like, I think you had these kind of diminished, sad, kind of chromatic descending scales, but at the end of it, there were these tales of beauty and
Mm-hmm.
kind of like uplift. And so that was what I was imagining was, the cold and kind of like the doldrums of winter, but also the beauty that we can see of these like kind of crystal structures.
That's really interesting. That's probably because you like cold more than I do. Like, if you're gonna ask me what winter is like, and I get to make it up. There's no ice in it. It's rain. It's only rain. Soft rain, hard rain, only rain.
Hence improv.
Yes.
Mm. Oh, Kim. Yeah, Kim asked, "Was that winter in New York or PDX?" There you go.
Yeah.
And Seth says that was wind pushing the snow into piles around the house. Okay, winter. Here we go. Let's do some winter sounds. Brr. All right, that was winter. Oh no, Daryl. Daryl's.
Hey,
Hey,
I'm
Daryl.
here.
Daryl's frozen. Ha 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 ha.
Yes, you froze me.
Bam.
Man, that was beautiful.
Thank you
But
so
that
much.
sounded, I mean, that didn't sound harshly cold or anything. It was more, I mean, but I guess maybe I just can't get cold in my mind. What were you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was influenced by your improv and kind of the idea of rain. So there was some wind. There were
Mm,
these kind of like raindrops. But also for me, winter is about nesting and kind
mm,
of being with
mm. The
family.
the fireplace, the
Yeah,
hearth, the
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So I had
Sweet.
these kind of like
I
longer phrases of
yeah.
warmth. Um,
Nice.
Uh,
Nice.
okay, nice. Kim asks, "Oh my gosh. Okay, Okay, wait. Which one should we do? Let's do. Daryl, have you had kimchi before?
I have had kimchi.
Okay, let's do that. What does kimchi taste like?
Oh my gosh. Wow. All right. The internet may not like this.
Let's blame Kim. Yes. Nice. Oh my gosh. That was hilarious. Care to explain?
Well, it's one of those things where um, I always start, because usually I'm eating kimchi in a restaurant with other, other things, bibimbap or something, and so it's a garnish, right?
Mm-mm.
And so you get a little bit in the chopsticks, and then you're like, oh, it's so good, a little bit more, and then then it's the full chopstick of kimchi, and the mouth just goes on fire, and you're like, water, 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 I made a mistake, and then you start over again, right? Like clear the palate because it's just one of those things. It's so irresistible, but yet so painful when you when you actually satisfy yourself.
Addictive, addictive.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That was awesome. Okay,
Oh, that's funny. What do you got?
kimchi
Well,
is definitely like an octave higher. Um, it's simple, it's satisfying, it's almost cliche like in my palate. You know, it's a
well, do you have you eaten it for a long time? I mean, has it been like a staple food, or are
I
you
don't
just
remember not eating it, right? I mean,
right?
yeah, and maybe like
So
my
it'd be like
twins.
corn or something, right? Like
Yeah,
for me,
yeah.
like what?
It's essential. I mean, I think, and it is so thrown my palate into like I need acidity and spice in basically every meal.
Right. Well, if kimchi is your baseline, then there's a whole lot of foods you're just going to be ignoring.
You know, yeah, like mac and cheese, like not my thing. You know? Mac and cheese with
Uh,
like tons of Tabasco, right? Then I'm down.
right. Exactly.
Then I'm
Exactly.
down.
That's funny.
Amazing. Oh man, I could do this all day.
I know.
But we can't. Uh, let's see. What are you curious about these days?
Oh man. I mean, I'm curious about everything. I mean, I think that is probably one of the defining characteristics, and one of the things that makes life joyful and interesting to me is that
Mm,
there's just so many questions. How are we going to rebuild our city?
mm,
I mean, I've been, looking at downtown Portland, looking at Portland, period, looking at anywhere in the center, in
mm,
the middle of the city. You're like, okay, now I know what the depression looked like. I
mm,
think. I mean, I think I knew, like, it looks like I'm imagining, pictures of Hoovervilles and people living in shacks and all this stuff in the middle of cities, and everything's boarded up, and I'm curious, like, how are we going to bring our city back? So that's something I think about a lot. I think about what we're going to do. I'm curious about how we will come together again as a country. I'm curious about, how we will choose in the next 4 years to treat each other, to be together. Um, I'm curious. I'm long debates with my son about whether or not, like, the ultimate, like, the trend, the trend that we have as a culture towards enlightenment and towards, like, sort of resilience, is going to be the prevailing, like, scenario. Are we going to actually be able to solve things like climate change? Is all this pain that we've gone through, has it created enough of a wave towards sort of human, I don't know, possibility that
mm,
we'll actually come up with solutions in ways that we hadn't before, that
mm.
might actually move some of these big problems forward. So that's, I mean, I think about this 24/7. So constantly curious about everything.
Yeah.
How about how about you?
Um, well, the rebuilding part is really, I think that's very, really salient. And it's not just going, like, let us not rebuild what already was.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
right.
And let the trees that have fallen, um, let the nutrients from those fallen trees give life to newer, more evolved organisms.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, and so yeah, I mean, and there is possibility. There's been a huge awakening of
Mm-hmm.
many millions of people. So what will we do with it?
Mm. I've almost been going in the opposite direction. I've been really interested in ancestry, um, not like
Hmm.
ancestry.com ancestry, but because I know pretty much exactly what I am. Um, But even the word ancestor is something that I most of my life have not said in America because immediately people will start singing Mulan to me, right? And I think that's the sad thing about this country is that whether you're white or not white, there's a certain amount of distancing from your ancestral past that happens. Um, and so, as an immigrant, I've been thinking a lot about the generations of of family members
Hmm.
and those ties that have been broken, and how do I both reach back and across the ocean, but
Hmm.
also how do I invite the spirits of these family members to this new land. Um,
Yeah.
so is that creative? Is that through just emotion and love, or meditation, and obviously creativity, music? But yeah, that's something that I've been thinking about a lot.
Hmm. I had this discussion, or I heard somebody talking about this, a Native American woman colleague at PSU, and she was saying how much of what she does and how she works through the world now
Mm.
is connected to her core narrative. And her core narrative as an Indigenous person is to connect through generations, to connect with ancestors. And I just thought that's so amazing that
Mm.
she's navigating her way through current systems and institutions, but based on the coyote myth of creation,
Mm.
based on her, the stories passed on by her grandmother and, to her from her grandmother. Like, and so I kind of think that's what you're saying too, is like, how do we explore what our core narratives are and how do we bring those to bear in, how we go through life today? And you're right, America is all about sort of the new narrative or disconnecting from the core narrative. And I think we need to
Yeah.
change that.
Well, and I think often for people of color that I think the greater dominant majority culture interprets that uh, connection with the past um, as antiquated, and it also locks these cultures into the past. If that makes sense. So if I tell a folk story about a rabbit and a turtle, then there's this they see that as very like ancestor worship, and you're locked into the past. I mean, how many regurgitations of Native American stories did I grow up with? And in doing so, it almost situates the experiences of indigenous peoples as part of a long ago story that has no relevance now, except in colorful stories about animals.
Well, I mean, yes, you could say that, but the thing is, we're also living into the core narrative of the dominant culture, right? I
Mm.
mean,
Oh, Skype. Core narrative of the dominant culture. Core narrative of the dominant culture.
oh, sorry. I say so like the Judeo-Christian stories that we grew up with
Mm.
are part of the core narrative of the dominant culture.
Right.
And so we are living into those and we don't feel like we're locked into the past, right? So, a Native American myth is just old stories, right? But it informs in the same way. It's possible to inform. And it would inform very different ways of action. Like we don't I think the
Mm.
thing is that we don't connect, we don't recognize how much we are living in the past
Mm.
in the actions that we're doing now, in sort of the way that we see the world. We think of ourselves as modern and scientific, but the very choices that we make on a daily basis are grounded in these sort of core narratives, and it just so happens to be the narrative of the dominant culture. So
Right.
we could bring in some others.
Right.
Um,
Achilles. Oh, like yeah.
right, like
Anansi.
yeah, Greek. Exactly. So why? And so I think that's one of the. I mean, it's not just America; it's the history of colonizing cultures. Anyway, I
Sure.
mean, more coffee, uh, but is is sort of or is translating those sort of substituting one myth for another,
Right.
right? Sort of killing those old myths.
Right.
So hopefully, we as we are what we are evolving to is a recognition that we need those old myths, those old ways of dealing with the world, from different cultures in order for us to find the solutions to the problems that we're facing now,
Yes.
because they're not necessarily going to be found in the sort of myths of the dominant culture.
Hmm. Mm.
I sound like I found it's a Saturday, man. I'm not supposed to be giving a
I'd
class,
take your
Joe.
class. I'd take your class. Okay, we have one last question from the audience, which is from Chase. Chase, quote, I was told by a respectable anonymous music person, red flags, that people should focus on teaching pop music instead of jazz due to where music is going in the minds of youth. I don't necessarily agree with that. Darrell, what are your thoughts on teaching jazz to future generations to come?
That's a great question. So I start my improv class by saying that, jazz, I feel like jazz is a discipline. It's a cultural practice. And you could pursue, everybody should have a practice, right? And it doesn't matter to me if it's, could be meditation, it could be calligraphy, it could be martial arts. I have, a practice is a way of learning about the world and learning about yourself and sort of steeping yourself in history and values. And so, what I feel like is jazz has a cultural history and values to offer to everyone because the universals in jazz, about community, about courage, about improvisation, like those are core life lessons. And it doesn't matter what kind of music you choose to play. The fact is that those values and that culture, those stories, are embodied in the 120-year practice of this music, and you can take those and move them wherever you want. And if you look at all of the many of the musicians from generations in the 20th century, they came out of that jazz tradition, out of those sort of values and stories and connection, and they became pop musicians and hip hop musicians and producers and I mean classical musicians. I mean all the things they chose to do with it, they still came from out of that place. So that's how I think of it. I think of jazz as a living practice with values and culture that you can learn about yourself and about the world, and then what you choose to do with that learning is totally up to you.
Amazing. Amazing. Darrell, anything that you're working on that you want to share with us?
Well, I just had this really, really wonderful live stream last night called The Cool Spot, and it was so much fun and so rewarding. So now I'm curious about where I might move that forward to. So I'm looking forward to moving on that. I'm looking forward to my jazz chamber opera being premiered next September. So it's coming up sooner than I think. So I'm looking forward to Sanctuaries. And in April, I'm actually doing. I'm composing a piece for a sound walk for
Third
Third
angle.
Angle New
Yeah.
Music, and so yeah, so they have a series of monthly sound walks, and mine's going to be in April. So I'm looking forward to turning my eyes to that and sort of figuring out how I can create. It's called Come Sunday, and it's going to be a tour of some old sort of African American centered churches in Northeast Portland.
Hmm.
So, yeah,
Amazing.
sound walk.
Amazing.
Yeah.
At Darrell Jazz. You can see it here at the top of the screen. Darrell, thank you so much for being on.
Thanks for your patience, Joe. I'm really sorry with it. I didn't no idea the internet connection would be a little so sketchy, but now you've inspired me to get that more solid. So,
Well,
but thanks.
well, you've inspired me a lot. In general, I saw you give a performance because it was music and storytelling at First United, I think, First United Methodist, and I wrote this in the mailing list, which is that when I went and talked to you, like after that, I was so nervous, and I think it's because of maybe it's because of the Korean upbringing where it was like if there are people who you respect and admire and are inspired by, keep your head down, work really hard, and your work will show for itself. Like don't bother the gentleman. I think is kind of the mindset.
Uh, I hear you.
So I'm really glad that I bothered you.
I am too, because I have to say that, you are one of the people that really inspires me. The way in which you do not limit yourself, the way in which you sort of move, you just show your humanity. You connect to story, and then you bring everything you've got. And it's been it's inspiration.
Amazing. I'm going to take that to the bank.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Darrell, and we will talk to you soon.
Cool. Thanks.
Bye, Darrell.
Bye.
Amazing. Oh my goodness. Okay. Heebie jeebies. All right. What a great conversation. Thank you so much for all the questions. Chase, awesome question. And I feel like I learned a lot. 2 weeks, we have the first episode of Cup of Joe for the new year, which will be a much, much better year. We have Ken Yoshikawa, who is an actor, musician, playwright here in Portland. Thank you, of course, to all the Cup of Joe supporting partners. We have Bravo Youth Orchestra, What's Up Bravo, and Trailhead Coffee Roasters. Thank you for tuning in on those pages. We're going to close out with a little short ditty, I believe the final thank you ditty from those who took the Cup of Joe survey at the end of season 1. This is for Akath. Akath, 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 All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. Bob, thanks for tuning in. Mickey, Joyce, Kim, Chase, questions were awesome. Seth, thank you all for tuning in to Cup of Joe. We will see you in the new year. Until then, happy holidays. May 2021 be filled with purpose. Purpose and righteous work. That's what I'm toasting to. Peace be with you all.